Welcome back, thanks for tuning into our Reddit cheating stories. Where are you watching from? Drop in comment and subscribe to our channel, thanks. Let's dive in. The air in the courtroom hung thick, heavy with unspoken accusations and the lingering stench of betrayal. Sarah sat rigidly, her eyes fixed on the polished wood of the defendant's table. Across from her, her husband, David, stared blankly ahead, his face a mask of haunted grief. And beside him, shackled and silent, sat Michael, David's brother, the man whose life had become a twisted, unbearable tragedy. It had all started, as these things often do, with the insidious creep of discontent. Sarah and David had been married for 15 years. In the beginning, it was a whirlwind romance, a passionate connection that seemed destined to last forever. They built a comfortable life, a beautiful home in the suburbs, successful careers, and a circle of close friends. But as the years passed, the vibrant colors of their love began to fade, replaced by the muted tones of routine and unspoken resentments. David, a workaholic architect, poured all his energy into his firm, often staying late at the office, chasing deadlines and the elusive promise of a promotion. Sarah, once a driven journalist, had traded her demanding career for the role of homemaker, a decision she increasingly regretted. The days stretched long, filled with the mundane tasks of running a household, and the nights were often silent, marked only by the distant hum of the refrigerator and the weight of unspoken loneliness. Michael, David's younger brother, was everything David wasn't: carefree, adventurous, and charismatic. He drifted from job to job, always chasing the next thrill, the next adventure. He was a frequent visitor to Sarah and David's home, a welcome burst of energy that often filled the tense silences between the couple. It was during one of David's many absences that the first spark ignited. Sarah and Michael found themselves spending more time together, drawn to each other by a shared sense of restlessness and a longing for something more. A casual conversation over a bottle of wine deepened into a late-night confession, and a fleeting touch lingered just a moment too long. The affair began slowly, tentatively, fueled by stolen moments and whispered promises. Sarah knew it was wrong, a betrayal of everything she held sacred, but she couldn't resist the pull of Michael's intoxicating attention. He made her feel alive again, desired, and seen in a way that David hadn't for years. Michael, too, was caught in the web of their forbidden desire. He had always admired Sarah, seeing in her a strength and intelligence that he found captivating. He knew he was playing with fire, risking his relationship with his brother, but the allure of Sarah's forbidden affection was too strong to resist. The affair continued for months, a dangerous dance of deceit and desire. They met in secret, stealing moments whenever they could, their passion growing stronger with each stolen encounter. But the weight of their secret began to take its toll. Sarah was consumed by guilt and paranoia, constantly fearing that David would discover their betrayal. Michael, too, felt the strain of lying to his brother, the man he had always looked up to. Then came the devastating blow. Sarah received a phone call from her doctor, the words echoing in her ears like a death knell. She had tested positive for HIV. The world seemed to tilt on its axis, the ground dissolving beneath her feet. She reeled, trying to make sense of the unimaginable. How? When? The only possible explanation was a brief, reckless encounter she'd had years ago, before she met David, a night she had buried deep in her memory, hoping it would never resurface. The shame was crushing, the fear paralyzing. She couldn't bring herself to tell David, the man she had vowed to love and protect. How could she confess such a devastating betrayal, a secret that would shatter their marriage and their lives? Instead, she did the unthinkable. She kept silent, burying the truth deep within her, hoping against hope that it would somehow disappear. But the virus doesn't disappear. It festers, it spreads, it destroys. Some time later, Michael started experiencing inexplicable health problems. Persistent fatigue, night sweats, and a nagging cough that wouldn't go away. He dismissed them at first, attributing them to stress and his unhealthy lifestyle. But the symptoms persisted, growing worse with each passing day. Finally, he went to see a doctor. The diagnosis was swift and brutal: HIV positive. Like Sarah, his world crumbled around him. He was young, vibrant, with a life full of possibilities ahead of him. Now, he was facing a future of uncertainty, illness, and potential death. His mind raced, searching for an explanation. He hadn't been promiscuous. He had always been careful. There was only one possibility, one horrifying conclusion that he couldn't escape. He confronted Sarah, his voice trembling with rage and disbelief. She denied it at first, her eyes wide with feigned innocence. But as he pressed her, the truth slowly unraveled, spilling out in a torrent of tears and confessions. Michael was devastated. He had been betrayed by the two people he loved and trusted most in the world. His brother, who had always been his role model, and the woman he had foolishly believed loved him. He confronted David, the raw pain of betrayal etched on his face. David was stunned, reeling from the double blow of his wife's infidelity and the devastating news of his brother's illness. The brothers' relationship, once strong and unbreakable, shattered into a million pieces. David was consumed by rage, grief, and a profound sense of helplessness. He wanted to lash out, to punish those who had caused him so much pain, but he was paralyzed by the enormity of the situation. Michael, consumed by anger and despair, spiraled into a dark abyss. He lost his job, his friends, and his will to live. He blamed Sarah for everything, for ruining his life, for condemning him to a slow and agonizing death. The weight of her secret, the guilt and the fear, finally became too much for Sarah to bear. She confessed everything to David, the affair, the diagnosis, the silence. David was heartbroken. All the love he had for his wife, all the years they had spent together, seemed to vanish in an instant, replaced by a cold, burning rage. He felt betrayed, humiliated, and utterly devastated. The family home, once a sanctuary of love and laughter, became a battleground of accusations and recriminations. The air was thick with tension, the silences punctuated by bitter arguments and tearful outbursts. One night, the simmering tensions finally boiled over. Michael, fueled by alcohol and despair, confronted Sarah at her home. He accused her of deliberately infecting him, of ruining his life. Sarah, exhausted and overwhelmed by guilt, broke down. She admitted her affair with Michael, her initial diagnosis and her failure to disclose it. She insisted that she never wanted to hurt him, that she was simply trying to protect herself and her marriage. But Michael was beyond reason. He saw only betrayal, only the destruction of his life. In a fit of rage, he grabbed a kitchen knife and lunged at Sarah. David arrived home to find a scene of unimaginable horror. Sarah lay bleeding on the kitchen floor, Michael standing over her, the knife still clutched in his hand. In a blind rage, David attacked his brother, wresting the knife away from him. A struggle ensued, a desperate fight for survival. In the heat of the moment, in a moment of unimaginable horror, David stabbed Michael. The courtroom was silent as the prosecutor laid out the case. David was charged with second-degree murder. The defense argued that he had acted in self-defense, that he was driven to the edge by the unimaginable circumstances. The jury listened intently, their faces etched with concern. They had heard the evidence, the testimonies, the heartbreaking stories of betrayal, loss, and despair. After days of deliberation, they reached a verdict. Guilty. David was sentenced to 15 years in prison. He stood to be paroled after 7, but would be forever branded as a murderer. He stood quietly and was escorted out of the courtroom, but not before he looked back at his wife. She was a shell of the woman he married. The guilt and depression had eaten her from the inside. He dropped his head and closed his eyes. As he was being escorted out of the courtroom, memories of their wedding day flashed through his mind. He quickly pushed them away and focused on his next steps. Sarah was left alone, burdened by the weight of her secrets, the architect of her own tragedy. She had lost everything, her husband, her brother-in-law, and her own peace of mind. She was left to face the consequences of her actions, the devastating ripple effects of her choices. Michael was gone. His anger had destroyed him. The story is a cautionary tale about the destructive power of secrets, the devastating consequences of betrayal, and the enduring weight of guilt. It's a reminder that even the most carefully constructed lives can be shattered by a single moment of recklessness, a single act of deception. And it is a reminder that violence is never the answer. The courtroom emptied, leaving behind only the echoes of shattered lives and the lingering stench of tragedy. The weight of secrets, it seemed, could crush even the strongest of hearts. And that's the end of the story. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to hit that like button, it really helps the channel out. Subscribe and hit the bell icon so you never miss a juicy twist in our next story. Got thoughts or a similar experience? Drop a comment below. I love reading what you all have to say.